while. I guess the first couple of minutes, we still have people dropping in. We had almost 3,000 signups today, which means we're going to have something like 1,000 people joining us live. So it takes a while until everybody gets into Zoom. So welcome, 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 everybody. First, I want to thank Gab behind the scenes who actually made the webinar possible, and already welcome to Stefano, who I'm going to introduce in a second. Gab is going to capture questions and is also going to answer some of your more Strategyzer related questions after the session. So what do we have today? We have a great menu. We're going to talk about teamwork innovation, how to build teams that can thrive post-pandemic. And we're obviously all waiting for post-pandemic. Good signs on the horizon. Still, we'll see where this is going to take us. McKinsey says it's probably going to go until Q3 until we really get back to some kind of normal. I hope you're all doing fine. Great that you're joining. Today, we are going to make it also fun. So a lot of educational good stuff from the Master of Teams and Project Management, Stefano. Big takeaway is going to be some of the lessons, from the pandemic in relationship to teamwork. I'm not going to talk about that, not my specialty area, but Stefano will. We're going to discover the new team tools. Some of you know some of the tools like the team alignment map, but we are going to publish a whole series in our new book. And you're going to understand a little bit this balance between online, on-site, and remote work. Like, how is that going to look in the future when we're not all remote like today? And with that, I'd like to introduce new Strategyzer author and very good friend, Stefano Mastrogiacomo. So professor, consultant, coach, and author. I've known Stefano for how long? Like, I don't know, 50 decades. At least we've been working together for a long time. And, I learned a lot actually from Stefano around simplifying. He initiated me to consulting and coaching back when I joined the company that he founded, which, had some similarities with Strategyzer. It's called Arvetica. And I'm super excited that Strategyzer was able to get Stefano on board as a Strategyzer author, which will be the topic for today. We're going to talk about our new book in the content, High Impact Tools for Teams. And my name is on the book, but the heavy lifting has been done by Stefano. So that's a good strategy, as you know. You get somebody to do all the work, and then you take a little bit of the credit. Now, I helped with some of it and like making jokes of it, but definitely the expert here in the room around teamwork is Stefano. At the end, I'm going to show why we believe this is important for Strategyzer to bring this topic and a leading author on board. So, team challenges, teamwork challenges. Before the pandemic, teamwork, is something that the whole kind of team configuration spread, became important. The project orientation of more and more companies. So teamwork is not a new thing. But what happened through the pandemic is that some of the challenges that we faced actually were just emphasized. I like to call it like a radio where you kind of, or a music where the sound was turned up. So these are not new challenges we're going to talk about, but the pandemic did accelerate or emphasize or just, tune up the sound more. So they became more visible, which also has its positive effects that we learned from it. And we adopted technology a lot faster. So when we go back, we can probably benefit from the best of both worlds, the physical and the virtual world, which we were thrown into immediately. Strategyzer has always been, in the remote world. But Stefano likes to tell me, Alex, you need to open your eyes. Not every company is as remote and as virtual as Strategyzer. And he's going to show us that. With that, I'm going to throw it over to Stefano while I'm going to try to elegantly launch the Menti Paul. So I'm going to be the Paul Master and maybe jump in every now and then with some words of experience. And with that, we will start. First Paul, I'm going to run the first Paul simply to get you onto Menti, which is important because we're also going to have a quiz and you can win a signed copy of high impact tools for teams. So you probably want to join us here. So go on to Menti, you go to menti.com, you use the code 8332430, and that will allow you later on to participate in the competition as well. So with that, we only have 69 people, so we need a couple more who join. You'll have the opportunity to join later as well. Gab will also post, I can't see right now the chat window, will also post. Yep, did that already. So please join us in the poll for later on. This was a warm-up question. If you believe teamwork will significantly change post-pandemic, and we see a lot of you say yes, a lot. So no surprise there. Stefano, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I hope that during this session you will gain very practical insights on how to improve teamwork over the next years. So we've all gone through a year of intensive remote teamwork. Typical synonyms of that are distributed teams, work from home, or smart working. For us, it's all the same. It's working over distance together. Now, I took this screenshot yesterday on CNN. The vaccination campaign has started. And as Alex mentioned, chances are that in a near future, we will be able to get back to a decent social life. Now, in that, waiting for that, we all work in teams and we want to be successful contributors in these teams. And teams have been a bit shaken in this recent period, with the pendulum constantly shifting between the opportunity to meet and work face-to-face or work using digital channels. Now, the question for us is, what are the implications and how can we get the best of teamwork, knowing that this pendulum will continue to shift like that for some time, and as well after that, when we can completely come back to a normal social life, what will remain from this period? So let's start our journey with two facts we discovered during the pandemic. And Alex, I hand it over to you for the next question.
Okay, so that is the cue that I go back to Menti and see Stefano's testing my technology, my remote technology skills. So in the meantime, we do have 340 people joining, so that's perfect. So please, what's the most effective communication channel for team coordination and collaboration? So let's see what your opinion is there. So you just go back to Menti. If you have it on a separate screen on your phone is actually most ideal. So when we get to the quiz, you want to make sure you can rapidly switch if you want to get this copy of the best business book of the year of 2021. No humbleness there. No humbleness.
Touch wood.
Stefano, what do you think of the poll here?
I'm just impressed by the 18 people who voted short messages. Obviously, I'll come back.
Probably engineers. I would guess in software development.
And we will address that later on in the presentation. The impact of using short messages or chat rooms on team performance. So I think I can continue from here. So, okay. So of course, and if you want to learn more about that, just Google media richness theory. The most impressive and the most effective communication channel for team coordination is face-to-face, and we just lost that during the pandemic. So we lost the richness and the agility of face-to-face. The amount of information we can convey when we're together as compared to what is conveyed through short messages is just phenomenal. So we lost that, first fact. A second fact is that most teams in the world had to transition extremely fast to new technology. So these technologies were there, but they weren't used by the quantity of people that are using them today, and especially the number of teams, and also the rapidity of that transition. So now if you take these two forces, the fact that we lost the power of face-to-face dialogue, plus the fact that we had to transition very quickly, that led us to see three challenges for teams during that last year. The first challenge, we called it mutual clarity. So, and to explain that, let's take the example of a coffee break. This is what a coffee break looked like before the pandemic. And this is, I don't know for you, but for me, that's the case, what a coffee break looks like during the pandemic. Now, we lost key, subtle alignment moments. And we realized how important these moments were to align and share key information spontaneously that enabled to create new opportunities for team or to stay aligned with the rest of the team by having side information coming to us. So we lost that, and that information, we realized how crucial that was. The second challenge we have seen is related to trust. I don't know you, but I made and I still make that experience to talk to black squares. And the question we see, and I particularly live that, is how far can we trust that the people behind these connections are really connected and working with us, solving the issues at hand. The third challenge we've seen is technology itself, and I'm going to show you here a little video.
Page comes out.
No, don't touch the computer. I'm talking the whole metal part of the screen.
The monitor itself.
Don't use the mouse.
Okay. Now, wait a minute. It says mute, stop video.
No, I don't want you to do anything on the computer.
Share screen.
I don't want you to do anything on the computer.
So, Stefano, that reminds, I wonder who else in the audience has done this with their parents, right? Trying to get them on Zoom or on Skype. Or this is a phenomenon that we all know, or our bosses, right?
Exactly, and so that brings us to the third finding. The third challenge for teams is that not everyone is as proficient as the geeks we are in using these online technologies. Many are still on the learning curve. So if you take these three challenges and the experiences we made in trying to overcome them, working with real teams in real projects, well, this is the key three takeaways we will develop throughout this session. We believe that the best team members post-pandemic will, one, actively maintain clarity in the team activities. Everyone will contribute to that. Two, they will actively contribute to build trust by defining the team rules and behaviors. And last but not least, three, they will actively contribute to the setup and the mastery of mixed environments that allow seamless transition between online and offline. Now, the temptation is always to go and jump into technology first. No, we are not going to do that because technology is a means to an end. And if you don't get the teamwork basics right, that technology will not release its full potential. So we will now see point by point what we mean by that and suggest a concrete tool or concrete approaches and ways of making that happen. So actively maintain clarity in the team activities. The problem, the challenge here we have noticed is what we call mutual clarity, or a better or more technical term is common ground neglect. Typical symptom is that we attend to too many useless meetings because of lack of preparation and information available. Among other symptoms of that lack of common ground, I'm going to use the technical term now, it's unclear who does what. Priorities keep changes and no one can figure out why. Or the famous project duplicates and overlaps. You might see maybe in your organization or around you. Now, concretely, what is mutual clarity or a team common ground? Well, an amazing scholar called Herb Clark, we will share in the chat a link to his work, spent years understanding what mutual clarity means, developing this notion of a team's common ground. Technically speaking, a team common ground is about shared knowledge and shared information. So let's take Anne and Bob, and it is considered that the information X is part of Anne and Bob's common ground if Anne knows the information, Bob knows the information, but it's not sufficient. For that information to be part of their common ground and hence deserve the label of mutual clarity, we need to go to a second order. Bob must also know that Anne knows the information, and Anne must also know that Bob knows the information. If you wish, in plain English, it would be something like what every team member knows that the other members also know. And now, Alex, I hand it over to you for our first test to visualize common ground together.
Okay, so we have a challenge. I'll leave this up. I'll leave this up for a second, Stefano,
Okay.
because I can't put it on the same. I'll show the vote in a second. But so let's go to the vote. But remember what was on the screen. Okay, so let me share.
So look at this picture, and we will ask you, what did you see on that picture? What do you see?
Okay, so question is, what do you see? And we already have people voting, so I love it how fast everybody here is. So we have technology wizards here in the room. Okay. What's a okay? You said a Rorschach test. Okay, good. First time a Rorschach, like okay, interesting.
So I see, you can see that there are many different interpretations. Look at the survey results based on our individual perception. So I'll bring back the control. Okay. So this was okay.
Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Once you've seen it, it's impossible to unsee.
Okay, so this was actually a cow. Now I hope everyone sees it. And I'm going to remove the drawing again and come back to the original picture. Now I imagine everyone is seeing the cow. What we've been doing here with that example is illustrate what is a team's common ground. We had many different perceptions with that picture, but now we know that there is a cow here. And because we're all very attentive in this webinar, we also know that everyone else all other participants know that there is a cow in this picture. So now the cow is in the webinar's participants' common ground. Now, it's a joke, but the implications of that are just immense. I've been testing the efficiency of common ground on task performance for teams for many years now, hundreds of participants, and you can expect a median and also an average of an increase in performance of 4 times, which is 400%. And certain teams going actually up to 12 times faster for performing the same task. So common ground, it's our engine for collective power. I'm not going to debate too much on that now, but it has to deal with the coordination and the prediction mechanism that take place between us when we coordinate. In practice, well, we design a team specifically to boost any team's common ground for almost any type of project. It's called the Team Alignment Map, and you will have a link to download that right after that webinar in the chat room. That poster helps create mutual clarity in 4 key areas required for a team to be effective in doing any joint project or activity. It helps align very quickly the stakeholders, clarify the roles, negotiate resources, for example, and reduce risks. All these components led and guided by that framework you put on a wall or on a shared screen. Let me show you an example very quickly. So this is an innovation team that wants to run an innovation project. So let's call the project Innovation Project 3, the period, and this is the result of their conversation. As we discuss, we add the different post-it notes so that it's visual and everyone can see the same information, and that increases the likelihood that it's in the common ground if we participate. Now the discussion goes on, and the team agrees that to do that, they will run experiments, design and run experiments, that teams will have to be coached on the innovation process, and that they will have to ensure that the team is set up and is driven forward. Now, objectives are set, but now who's going to do what? And the discussion continues. Everyone agrees to participate in the first of the objective, which is to run and design experiments. The second objective, coach teams, a Strategyzer coach is present in the room and agrees to take that part and ensure that things are in place. It is agreed by the executive sponsor that he will particularly take care of that. Now, good. We have a mission, a period, objectives. We know who's going to do what. We've been discussing that. Now, it's not finished. You see, we have to continue filling in these columns because every project, every activity in the world consumes resources. So what is needed to run that project? We need the Strategyzer app, which is available. That's cool. So that's why we put that post-it note in green. Now, we also need 15 man days, and we don't have them. So let's have that note in red. And we need a budget of 10K. That is also missing. We continue the conversation together by identifying what could prevent us from succeeding. Those are the risks. And 2 risks are identified. The first one, that we can't contact customers for designing and running our experiments, for example. And 2, that we will not dedicate enough time to this project. Now, this is a typical example of an alignment session with a team alignment map, but it's not finished yet. This first part, which is filling in the poster from left to right, is called the forward pass and gives the big picture of the collaboration. But now we have to perform a backward pass, to address the challenges in the last 2 columns. We can't really expect to be successful in this with missing resources and risks open. So let's address them immediately. For example, 15 man days. Now we start the backward pass. 15 man days. Okay, we missed them. Well, the executive sponsor agrees to validate and allocate man days and budget. And we just transformed a problem into a new objective with a new commitment. As we look at our post-its, we realize that that new objective and that new commitment also manages the problem of the budget and not dedicating enough time. So we simply remove them. Their presence on the board is not required anymore. One last example to finalize the backward pass. Can't contact customers. Well, we create a new objective, ask customer success team to book clients time ahead, and the executive sponsor commits to do that. You see, that makes a world of difference to enter into a project with a visual understanding, shared visual understanding of what we have to do together, than not having that image, the same image for everyone, and presuppose what other people will be doing. That changes a lot, and that addresses for us that challenge of mutual clarity that we tend to lose when we're not together.
I'll add to that. So by the way, every time at Strategyzer, when we didn't use the team alignment map, either as our team or with the clients, it tends to go south because you have nothing to come back to. So I can just, guarantee you from our experience, because we didn't invent the team alignment map, that was Stefano, but when we work together as a team internally or with clients, every time we don't use it, it tends to become a little bit of a mess, right? So we use a lot of tools, but when we don't use this one, team alignment usually goes, south. So we always learn the lesson afterwards, and then we remind ourselves, gee, we didn't do it. Once again, it's hard to do this ritual, right, of a team alignment map.
And thanks, Alex, for that. Just to mention that the Hospital of Geneva, and I owe this example to Alain Giannatasio, who facilitated the exercise, transformed the hospital in a dedicated COVID-19 center in just 5 days, starting with a team alignment session with the operations of the hospital and all the key departments included. So when we mentioned the scalability of the tool, here is a recent example. I have to mention successfully. Now, this is for the first lesson learned. The second lesson learned is actively build trust by defining team rules and behavior and kind of stop presupposing them. The problem is what we describe as trust or psychological safety neglect. The typical symptom of that is when there is fear in the air and it's difficult to speak up. Other visible symptoms that there is a psychological safety neglect is internal competition. We should be collaborating, disengagement, or working in silos. We'll be immensely grateful forever to Amy Edmondson, who developed and made this concept accessible to the vast majority of us. The Fearless Organization, her last book. What is psychological safety? It's just a variation of trust. It is the belief that the team is a safe place for interpersonal risk-taking. And just to be more precise, it's the confidence that we will not be punished or humiliated if we speak up with new ideas, questions, or concerns. Why does that matter so much? Well, when psychological safety is missing, well, no one wants to look ignorant, so we don't ask questions. No one wants to look incompetent, so we don't admit weaknesses or mistakes. We don't want to look intrusive, so we don't offer ideas, and so on. Google impression management, if you want to learn more about that. And the number one consequence of that is that we enter into a low team innovation spiral because we don't put our ideas in common and we don't leverage the creativity of all of us. We kind of cut the cooperation signal with this information that is not flowing between us and does not enable first the creation of our common ground that I just mentioned, and does not help us enter into so-called learning behaviors that are those behaviors in a team that help us solve complex problems, which is typically what we do when we innovate. Now, don't misunderstand what psychological safety is. It's not being nice. It's not a trade-off between being nice or having business pressure. No, for a team to perform, you need both. There has to be a challenge you see on the horizontal axis. There has to be some challenge in the air, some business pressure for results, but also we must feel safe on the other axis, that we can experiment and fail while we find and seek solutions. And that is what makes our team enter into that famous quadrant on the top called the learning zone. I let you discover the other ones. By the way, this is very well explained and documented in the Fearless Organization. Now, this is not some nice talk about psychology. It's super important. And there is an important organization called Google that realized that and made that their #1 HR principle. We will share in the chat room a link to an article that explains the project they had internally to try to identify and measure, you know, how important data is for Google, measure what are the criteria of the most effective teams internally at Google. And the number one finding was that this was psychological safety, and they built their HR practice on that. For us, and the majority of us, why not give a try to the team contract? The team contract is another tool presented in High Impact Tools for Teams that helps anyone in the team facilitate an exercise to increase psychological safety by setting the team rules of the game, making the values explicit and behaviors, and that helps minimize also future conflict, as we have noticed in practice. What is usually in an example? So this is a consolidation of what we typically see in this exercise. So at the top, you have the name of your project or the name of your team. Example of what is in. So this is negotiated by team members together, be on time, do mistakes, always seek to understand first, come to meetings, prepare, a classic. Headphones on means no interruption, no meetings on Fridays, listen to each other, be open to ideas, and so on. Respect the levels of confidentiality, etc. So these are typical things teams negotiate when they establish the rules of the game. And the same is true for what teams agree not to do. I'm just going to read one or two. Apply procedures blindly, be late, playing politics, and so on. Okay, Alex, I hand it over to you for the next question.
Yeah, and just one example, we actually had a company call at Strategyzer, and we use the team contract to define the behaviors in and out when it comes to accountability. So really powerful for our team to actually do that in the context of accountability. So really recommend you play around with this extremely simple tool, right? There's in and out. Couldn't be more simple. So I had this on the screen already. That's why many of you already voted or made your behavior explicit. Do you define team behaviors and rules when you start a new project or when you start with a new team? So now you've seen what Stefano means with the team contract. So good to see the blue ones. A lot of you always define team behaviors and rules when you start, which we would want to go and verify that and see how honest you are. Let's benefit of the doubt. So we'll assume that you are defining the rules of the game at the beginning of every project, not just once a quarter, once a year, but at the beginning of every
and when there is a new team, when there's a new team.
So quite often, so pretty good, Stefano. Seems like we have a very knowledgeable group here.
Excellent. Congratulations to the participants.
Okay, I'll let you take over again.
No, it's I guess it's time for the quiz.
Okay. So time for the quiz. So you can win now before we get to the last part with the technology and off and online. Show it again. Show it in the screen. We want to see it. Wonderful. Okay.
It's heavy.
It's heavy. It's heavy intellectually and physically. So please get ready for the games. Let's let the games begin. We have 300 participants. Okay, so quite a few of our 700 participants. We have 340 who are going to compete. I'll give it, 2 more seconds for everybody to join, maybe some more of the 700. Stefano, what was your biggest insight related to psychological safety, working with teams, for example, in the context of hospitals, etc.? Just maybe while people are logging in, biggest insight, psychological safety.
Again, that a lot of teams, we work in cross-functional teams across departments and so on. So many of us have different perspectives as we assemble these cross-functional teams. And my main takeaway is really that there is a lot of, we presuppose a lot of things in the air, we don't make things explicit, basically. So a lot of the problem with cross-functional teamwork, if you want to break down the silos, it's all about like doing what matters first, which is again, create the good conditions for everyone to feel like confident that it's going to work.
Yeah.
And this is something, again, that still strikes me, that level of presupposition that everything is going to be okay when we start working with people from completely different departments.
Yeah, and I like what you said about assumptions, right? Assumption seems to be the biggest killer because people assume and they don't verify and don't make explicit. Okay, so let's get started. Just one thing, when you answer, speed matters. So the faster you answer, the more points you get. Okay, so pressure's on you. Let's go. Start with first question. Stefano, how many questions are we going to have?
We have 5.
Okay, 5. So first one, answer fast, get more points. What's a team's common ground? Information every team member knows. Information every team member knows that others members also know. I'll let you go through it. Time pressure. Time's up.
Whoa.
Okay. Good. So people paying attention. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. 179 got it right. Okay, so that was number 1.
Or maybe a little comment. Oh, no, too late.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, I was too fast.
No, I will do that later.
Second one, what's the median increase in time performance for teams having a high common ground? I remember that one. Actually, very impressive number. This one is, when you play the game, Stefano in workshops, he plays this game that is really, really cool. 400%, people paying attention. Did you want to make a comment now from before and now?
Yeah, just before, those who answered the first answer, information everyone has, it's not sufficient. You have to have that information, but you must also know that the others, they have it too.
Excellent. Okay, so question number 3. The second most effective communication tool for teams is? Channel, sorry. I get so excited when we do these quizzes.
The second
best. Video conference.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. And by the way, Stefano, a lot of people were saying, wow, but face-to-face has a lot of secondary things, like you can't, with scheduling and all that's costly to travel around the world. Like, so there's some comments there, almost religious comments, right, for remote teams. But I guess, it's the best is physical with all of the downsides. Like, of course, it costs money, it's hard, but as a coordination channel, it's the best, right?
Well, we are fans of distributed tools and working with this amazing technology. We love that. But this is not actually a question of debate. It's like that. Conversation, being physically co-present, presents numerous advantages as compared to being working remotely. One thing I like to say to people who are on the extreme of digital is, if you had a serious challenge in your organization or in your company and that you had to set up a task force, would you prefer to have everyone in the same room or solve complex problems for your own organization remotely? I mean, we kind of get a sense of what the answer.
And what you'll talk about after is it's the combination of both, right? That's most powerful. You use physical when physical works, and when you can afford to travel. Sometimes you can't afford to travel if you're a startup, right? So you just live with what you'd make the best of what you can. Okay, so let's move to question number 3. Or are we already at 4? I kind of lost track here, getting so excited. One key thing great teams will do post-pandemic. Let's see. I won't disturb you reading this. Get vaccinated before March 2021. I like that. There's some debate around that. Okay.
There were several correct answers. You all got them. Excellent.
Okay, wonderful. So you can see there's not only one right question. This is the last one. What is psychological safety?
Oh, we still have 2. I'm sorry.
2 more. Okay. So a nutritional supplement that helps teams perform. I'm going to eat a lot of psychological safety for breakfast. I love that. Okay, of course.
Excellent.
So the speed was, right? Those who started reading from the right-hand side had a competitive advantage. Last but not least, who developed the concept of psychological safety? That's an easy one. Is it Stefano or me? Donald Trump? Okay, we're getting political here. Edmund Aronson. Amy Edmondson. Okay. Oh, some believed you were. That's good. Okay. Let's see. Let's discover who the winner is before I'll hand over to Stefano for some more serious ending. The winner is... Oh, Hubert, you already won something in the last thing I did, so you can't win again. Eve Upton. Okay, Eve, please send us a message. Gab, how is Eve going to communicate with us?
You can, I'll post my email address in the chat and you can just send your coordinates.
Okay,
Bye.
very, very courageous. Gab is going to get a lot of emails from admirers as well now. So with that, Stefano, back to you.
Okay, so let's continue. Now we come to the third lesson learned, which is about technology, and that the best team members will actively contribute to the setup of mixed environments so that we can transition seamlessly between online and offline work. The problem here, we call it collaboration environment neglect. And the symptom is when technology is painful and makes work slower, which should be exactly the contrary. So if you experience that, you might have a collaboration environment neglect around you. So what do we mean by collaboration environment? Basically 3 things. 1, it's the online environment. 2, the physical environment. And 3, the ways of working or the methods you use to collaborate. Let's start with the first. And before I start, just understand there is no one size solution fits all. It's a unique combination for each team to find the right balance between these different topics. So online environment. Basically what we do online, it's mostly communicate, managing tasks, sharing files and documents. And the new entrant for the majority is solve problems together online with visual platform like Strategyzer, Miro, and Mural. So you see all the different tools available out there. It's just a joy to see the richness of the platforms available today and what they allow us to do. Now, what we've seen during the pandemic is, unfortunately, that many teams use forks to eat soup. So there is a kind of tool mismatch in the usage. Now, not only there is a tool mismatch, but also sometimes there is the old habits that are so much anchored in the behaviors that they make things more difficult. So if I take, for example, problem solving, still too many PowerPoint files where content is co-created that transition from one mailbox to the other. Why wouldn't you consider shifting or trying, experimenting, or working with an online shared space like the three you see there to co-construct, solve problems together in a space where everyone can see what everyone else is seeing, and you see where I'm going here. So very quickly, this is for us. Alex, a very quick survey before I continue.
Okay, yeah. Survey Master over here launching the question, does your company officially support an online shared board system like Strategyzer, Miro, or Mural? And there are many out there these days, and they all have different,
we're almost,
objectives.
yeah, we're almost half, huh?
Yeah, interesting, right? And sometimes what's interesting is you see teams that go guerrilla, they use it, but they don't have official, okay from the IT department, right?
That's why the question was framed the way it was framed. We see a lot of courageous people. We know organizations have security constraints, but I think it's a no-brainer that we need, if we have to balance and seamlessly transition between online and offline, actually, we have to work this out.
Yep.
It's not even a question. Once you start experimenting these things, there is no way back. For project management and task management, also great tools out there. And here I'm not talking about the professional tools used by professional in IT or mostly, or in other departments, but I see too many activities still and projects logged in Excel, and these Excel files navigating from desktop to desktop. Why not consider one of the tools I mentioned there on this page? These are easy to use, and they provide really a shared view, a shared awareness of what's going on in the team, and they are kind of designed to be used by everybody. So if you are a professional, of course, you have the tools we know, and in particular Jira, who's an amazing tool, but really you have to be in that area of IT to benefit from it. Other tools are for the rest of us. Another example of improvement to transition better between online and offline is communication tools. Still, Opla, sorry, I see a lot of emails transitioning through the mailbox. Why not move to a communication channel like Slack, Microsoft Teams, or HipChat, so that everyone, we have dedicated channels per topic, per team, and we can keep track of the rest of the conversation, particularly in our absence. Another topic that might seem trivial, but it's not at all, it's the screen size. This is too small, like a laptop. If you connect from home and you want to benefit from these great platforms available out there, don't expect to have a pleasant experience with a screen that big. I mean, we need large screen estate to see things and collaborate with people remotely. Very quickly, Alex, question is, how many of you can connect to work using a large screen?
I have 6 screens in front of me for the webinars. So I have one really large screen, but it's pretty crazy, right? That very few, in particular established companies are, they work on laptops. It's very, very hard to do visual work on visual boards with small screens, right?
Exactly. So be aware, for those who don't have that possibility for now, that this is going to change your experience of remote teamwork with the adoption of these new shared tools. Okay, now quickly, 3 big mistakes we have noticed during the pandemic. Mistake number 1, start new things, new projects, new teamwork asynchronously by email, using chat rooms, or SMS. This is a big mistake because when a team is assembled, then or a new project starts, we all have different perceptions. So that's where the need for alignment is the biggest. So you might want to use a communication channel that conveys a lot of information and not a communication channel that has low bandwidth. An example I had is a head of technology calling me, asking me to audit his department, and in particular why the majority of their projects were significantly late and significantly over budget. What is the first question I asked him? I let the doubt for 1 second. I just asked him, can I participate in a team meeting or a project meeting? You know my bias for meetings. And he said, what meetings? I said, you don't have meetings? No. So how do you start projects then? Well, we start them through email or using the chat room. And I said, don't worry, we don't need to do an audit. I have, I think, an idea of why your projects are late. When we start projects, we need maximum power to inflate the balloon of the common ground. So take advantage of the face-to-face, the power of face-to-face, or at least video conferencing. Now, another big mistake, maybe Alex, you can also help me on this one, is that we see the other extreme also. If we narrow down, some teams that are so into remote that they mostly rely on chat messaging, and that causes problem too, because a lot of the coordination is done through a low bandwidth.
Yeah, one thing I'd add here is, something we actually learned, that it's more efficient to then take a synchronous video call. You'll save so much time rather than sending messages back and forth, right? In particular, when it's at the same time. So sometimes we see people synchronously chatting rather than quickly, opening up that second best channel, which is video communication. So it's unbelievable. The other one, when it comes to asynchronous, we're starting to use video recordings like Loom as a platform, because you get a lot more. Energy-wise, it's better than a chat. You can summarize things a little bit faster. So something, we really just started recently, a couple of months ago, to systematically do Loom messages. But then the problem is, you should probably also summarize some of the video messages with a small text that brings it down to 3 bullet points. So there's also the blah, blah phenomenon. When you talk too much, no more summaries, right?
And with that, let's share the third big mistake is to use the richness of meetings just for updates. No, meetings is where we should solve complex problems, because that's when we benefit from the greatest bandwidth in terms of channel for communication. So let's recap what we've learned during the pandemic in terms of, and the trademark is just for fun. We call that smart channel selection post-pandemic. Please use synchronous channels whenever you initiate new activities and projects, or to solve complex problems, or when performing creative tasks. By synchronous channel, we mean face-to-face, physically co-present, or by video conference, and to a lower extent, audio conferencing. Now, use asynchronous channels to notify about changes, edit documents, or share updates and report. Or if you work with people you have been knowing for a long time and you're doing something you've been doing frequently. Okay, so keep in mind this idea of smart channel selection, as we will have to multi-channel more and more in the future. Quickly, a note on the physical environment. The classic office space setup won't do. This we've been long convinced, Alex and I, but now more than ever. We need mixed, we need that are visual work friendly, that enable the continuity of the work between online and offline. So at least a whiteboard where we can work physically if we're in the room, and connectivity so that we can access rapidly, not in hours, a shared screen where we can access the team resources and visualize all the same things, and also integrate those of us who will be working distantly in that meeting. I conclude with ways of working, and this is bringing to the end of our webinar, the methods. So we believe that the best manager in the world is not one person, it's the team, and that it's a collective responsibility to manage the team. That's why we developed and tested and also use these 5 tools we presented in high impact tools for teams. We've seen 2 today. That's what we could do in 1 hour, but there are 3 more presented in the book. These tools, you can see them as teamwork plugins anyone can use that help do both things. Infuse clarity in the team activities and build trust. And they work online and offline, of course, as they are. 2 of them are shared spaces, and the others are more behavioral tools that make us becoming a better contributor. They integrate, they're just plugins, they beautifully integrate with any existing project management method you might use. And I hand it over to you, Alex, for the conclusion.
Yeah, a couple of interesting comments. We don't have time for questions, but somebody was saying it'd be interested in the post-pandemic office. So I'm going to put this up while maybe 1 or 2 words on what the participants were saying. So a lot of great, thank you, Stefano, a lot of great comments, and a lot of people, you know, with strong beliefs, but a really good conversation. But, you know, might be actually time then for a follow-up on the post-pandemic office. So we'd absolutely go into that because time has run really fast. We also had fun with our little quiz. So just drop a line in, you know, what you thought about the presentation, insightful, interesting. We won't be able to go deeper today, but we will have the opportunity, of course, in the future to go deeper in future webinars. With that, I'll show 2 last slides before handing it back to Gab. Let me see if this has worked. Kind of the way, I'm not used to this anymore. So we brought Stefano on board with high impact tools for teams because in innovation, in transformation, there's no way you're going to succeed with a dysfunctional team. It's basically the atomic unit of innovation success or success in general. It's the team. No individual is going to succeed, nor in innovation, nor in strategy, nor in transformation. So we believe it really emphasizes, you know, a lot of the, it's a new job, it's a job to be done that you'll find in all of the activities that Strategyzer supports. And with that summary, we've seen this challenge to create more clarity with visual tools, something that Strategyzer really believes in. And that's why the team alignment map from Stefano is such a strong kind of addition to the toolbox, including other tools, you know, that Stefano really bought and I think brought on board, and merging psychological safety and team management from a more coordination perspective is something unique. Amy Edmondson even pointed this out, that blue and red together is what's really new. Yeah. And then the last one, we went into the mixed environment, which I think we heard, Stefano, evidence from the participants. We need another webinar on the mixed environment. So I'm going to convince you. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining today. It's 6 o'clock in Switzerland. We will finish on Swiss time. Stefano and I are in Switzerland. And with that, I'm going to hand over back to Gab to, you know, answer any questions that may come up. But first of all, thank you for everybody joining throughout the world.
Joining us.
We had people from Thailand and wow, China and India in the middle of the night. So awesome that you joined.
Thank you so much.
the whole globe was present. So thank you, Stefano. Awesome. And this won't be a last one. See you soon.